Hi guys, so last time we had a look at the config proxy factory. If you haven't checked it out, check it out because it's quite interesting. I'm going to move on today to layered config, and I do actually prefer it to the composite config, to be honest with you. The problem with composite config is what overrides what, and it's not immediately clear. With this, I've defined the external config first, so I know that that's going to override the class path config, and if I run it, see, I get an external description because that's what's in my external properties file. But if I change this ordering and I put this first and I run it again, then I get the class path description. But I prefer something that's more explicit in what's going to be overriding what's going to have the highest priority. And for that, we can use the layered config. So let me just comment this out, and we'll get straight away down to the layered config. And the layered config, I don't think it has a builder, to be honest with you. So we just kind of have to instantiate it and just add config that way. I might be wrong, though. Do correct me if I'm wrong. But I haven't seen a builder for the layered config. I might just not be looking hard enough. Okay. Layered config. Layered. Can't spell. There we go. And straight away, I'm just going to add config, and I'm going to use this layers dot application. Okay, and I'm going to add class path config. Okay, when I run it, I'm going to get an error because I haven't imported it. Okay, we run it and I get my class path description. Okay, and if we have a look at this layers class, you see you've got a list of static variables here. And if you have a look at, say, test, we've got layer of test and this number here, 100, 200, 300, 400. That defines what's going to have priority. And the lower the number, the higher priority. So our test with 100 is going to override runtime config, which is going to override system config and environment and root and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so for here, my class path config, I've given it a layers.application. Okay, and that's quite low down on the priority list. So if I do my external properties and I give it layers.remote, the external is going to override application. So let's just try that now. Config.add config layers.remote, and we're going to add our external properties. Add the imports, run it. Let me get our external description, because remote overrides application. It doesn't matter where we define this now, unlike composite config. You just put it above and it's still going to override. There we go. Doesn't matter where you put it. Okay, so again, if we add another config, add config layers.environment, so we're going to use environment variables. For that, we're going to environment config.instance. If we add an environment variable, I might have already done it. Yeah. And run it. Environment description. Again, if we add another config, layers.system, system overrides environment. Layers.system, which over 300, which overrides environment 400. We're going to give it a system config dot instance. So now we need to give it some VM arguments. I may have already done that. Okay, VM arguments -d feature description equals system description. So if we run that, that's going to override everything else. Systems description there. Okay, and that's the basics of default layered config. Again, it's pretty simple, but it gives you, it's more clear what overrides what, unlike composite config. So this is the one that I just generally use. Really simple to set up. And there we go. That's pretty much, that's all layered config. Again, thanks for watching.